pamasko, suot ang masko, nakasanitize na ang kamay. I-minimize ang usapan, maaliwalas ang pagdarausan ng handaan.
Kahit tayo lang, tuloy ang saya, makikita sa mga mata. Salamat sa pag-iingat, ang lahat magpabakuna na. Oh, oh.
Ligtas Christmas sa Healthy Pilipinas. Stay safe to the max para sa Healthy Pilipinas. Damhin ang diwa ng pagdiriwang, biyaya sa bawat nilalang para sa Healthy Pilipinas. Bakunado man, bawal gumamit ng borotot.
Mas malakas ang pananabik sa isa't isa, ngunit walang magpapaputok.
Ligtas Christmas sa Healthy Pilipinas. Stay safe to the max para sa Healthy Pilipinas. Damhin ang diwa ng pagdiriwang, biyaya sa bawat nilalang para sa Healthy Pilipinas. Stay safe to the max para sa Healthy Pilipinas.
Tres bakuna. Tara na, mag-res bakuna para bawas pangamba. Dahil sa res bakuna, bawat buhay ay mahalaga. Sa res bakuna, huwag kang patatalo sa pagsubok na ito. Ituloy natin ang laban, mayroon tayong paraan. Tuloy ang trabaho, tuloy ang pag-aaral. Para sa kapwa Pilipino, para sa ating mga mahal. Tara na, mag-res bakuna para bawas pangamba. Dahil sa res bakuna, bawat buhay ay mahalaga. Mag-res bakuna, mas protektado ang pamilya. Kasaganang mas hugas iwas, kinabukas ay maganda. Sa res bakuna. Laging handa. Laging handa. Baha, tagtuyot, sunog, lindol, bagyo. Mga kalamidad na likas sa ating mundo. Napapahamak ang buhay at kabuhayan. Kaya naman kailangan ng paghandaan.
Maging handa, maging alerto. Tungkulin to ng bawat mamamayan. Kaya tara na, kilos na, lika na, tumulong tayo. Gawin na po ang karapat-dapat na maging laging handa. Tara na, kilos na, lika na, tumulong tayo. Gawin na po ang karapat-dapat na maging laging handa. Laging handa.
Kalamidad ay maaasahang darating.
Sa di inaasahang oras,
Kaya naman hindi na dapat hintayin. Unahan na habang di pa natataranta.
maging handa, maging alerto. Tungkulin to ng bawat mamamayan. Kaya tara na, kilos na, lika na, tumulong tayo. Gawin na po ang karapat-dapat na maging laging handa. Tara na, kilos na, lika na, tumulong tayo. Gawin
Pati ang iyong kapaligiran, saan ka ba nakatira? Diyan ba ay bumabaha? Tuwing gamot pagkain, kumot pang sindi, first aid kit, mga gamit panligtas ng buhay dapat mabitbit. At sakaling lumindol o sumabog ang bulkan, meron bang madadaanan palayo sa kasawian? Panahon na ay malupit at ang hangin hagupit, mabuti na lang na tayo ay laging nakahanda.
Tara na, kilos na, lika na, tumulong tayo. Gawin na po ang karapat-dapat nang maging laging handa. Tara na, kilos na, lika na, tumulong tayo. Gawin na po ang karapat-dapat nang maging laging handa.
This message was brought to you by the Department of Education with the support of World Vision Development Foundation.
Tara na okay, Oplan kalusugan sa DepEd. Halina't alamin atin ang tuklasin, mga health programs ating palaganapin. Tara na okay, Oplan kalusugan sa DepEd. Halina't alamin atin ang tuklasin, mga health programs ating palaganapin. School-based feeding program ating pagtibayin. Wastong pagkain ating ihahain, mga batang kulang sa timbang. Ating pakakainin ng Go, Grow, and Glow. Adolescent reproductive health ay gawing gabay at patnubay ng batang mausisa ay di maranasan. Ang early pregnancy ay maiiwasan. Kalusugan ay mahalaga sa edukasyon ng mga bata. Tayo na't magkaisa, halina tayo'y sumama. Tara na okay, Oplan kalusugan sa DepEd. Halina't alamin atin ang tuklasin, mga health programs ating palaganapin. Tara na okay, Oplan kalusugan sa DepEd. Halina't alamin atin ang tuklasin, mga health programs ating palaganapin. National Drug Education Program or NDE kung tawagin. Ito'y paigtingin, mga bisyo'y alisin. Sigarilyo at droga'y dapat nang puksain. Water sanitation and hygiene in schools ating kompletuhin, 3 stars ay abutin. Malinis na tubig, segregated na toilet, group hand washing at may napkin na rin. Kalusugan ay mahalaga sa edukasyon ng mga bata. Tayo na't magkaisa, halina tayo'y sumama. Tara na okay, Oplan kalusugan sa DepEd. Halina't alamin atin ang tuklasin, mga health programs ating palaganapin. Tara na okay, Oplan kalusugan sa DepEd. Halina't alamin atin ang tuklasin, mga health programs ating palaganapin. Medical, dental, and nursing services na atin ding binibigay upang matugunan problemang pangkalusugan ng mga guro at kabataan. Kalusugan ay mahalaga sa edukasyon ng mga bata. Tayo na't magkaisa, halina tayo'y sumama. Tara na okay, Oplan kalusugan sa DepEd. Halina Halina't alamin atin ang tuklasin, mga health programs ating palaganapin. Tara na okay na okay, o plan kalusugan sa DepEd. Halina't alamin atin ang tuklasin, mga health programs ating palaganapin. Tara na okay, o plan kalusugan sa DepEd. Halina't alamin atin ang tuklasin, mga health programs ating palaganapin. Okay talaga sa DepEd. Okay talaga sa DepEd.
Kristanos! Sakay mo ako! Kristanos!
The child embodies our ultimate vision that every Filipino learner will realize their full potential and ultimately reach their biggest dreams, no matter how high, no matter how hard, through quality education. And as our learners aim to soar, we must continue to elevate our goals. Rising, the kite is our emblem of aspiration to deliver the brand of quality in Philippine basic education. The quadrants of the soaring kite symbolize the key reform areas in forwarding this cause, as we embark on this aggressive reform to yield upskilled teachers, well-developed curriculum, improved learning environment, and responsive multi-stakeholder cooperation. Using the colors of our flag, the logo symbolizes our unity and serves as a reminder that it takes a nation to educate a child. Together, we as a nation will have to move forward and gain more momentum so that our vision of quality basic education for all shall take flight. Sama-sama sa pagsulong ng edukalidad.
Good afternoon once again, teachers of the DepEd Division of Davao del Norte. And once again, welcome to the seminar workshop on contextualizing assessment across all learning areas.
All right, so before we'll proceed, we would like to thank the Generation Events for this beautiful setup here at the conference hall. For bookings, visit and message their FB page, Generation Events. Generation Events for birthdays, debut, wedding, decors, and other all-in package.
Right? Daghang king salamat, Sir Jens Binasbas of Dato Balong National High School for this very wonderful and pina-update nga studio decoration that you have set upon us. Now, right now, we're going to check our participants, Mambing, sa atuang group chat, but do not forget our respective hashtags. Ato ang gamiton na ato ang respective hashtags for our comments and our names in the comment section. For Asuncion, we have hashtag Wow Asuncion.
For Braulio Iduhali, Dasig.
For Carmen, we have hashtag More Pa.
For Kapalang East and West, Mike Hay.
For Langilan District, we have hashtag Lumalaban.
For New Corelia District, hashtag One District, One Dream.
For San Isidro District, we have hashtag Palaban.
For Santo Tomas East and West District, hashtag Winner Ka.
And for Talaingod District, we have hashtag Shine. So karon Mambing, we are going to pick some shout-outs sa atuang comment section for us to be able to interact also with our participants this afternoon, Mambing. As we are heading now to choose We have Ma'am Ted Marata. Ma'am Ted Marata from
Dato Balong National High School.
we have Dato Balong National High School, San Isidro District. We have also Ma'am Marilu Lemit. Good afternoon, everyone, from Concepcion, Asuncion, Davao del Norte.
And we also have here Ma'am Edita Ravina Demerin. Good afternoon, watching here from Sawata National High School, San Isidro District.
We have also from Ma'am Edita Sangan Kabayag. Good afternoon po, still watching from Cambanogoy Central Elementary School, Asuncion District.
Meron din dito si Ma'am Florami Gasulas. Good afternoon, everyone, watching from Central Baugan Integrated School, Talaingod District. Please use your hashtag SHINE.
We have also Sir Daniel Ismala. Good afternoon po, everyone, from Carmen National High School. We have also here Ma'am Nida Hijosa. Good
Yes.
afternoon, watching po from Kimamon Elementary School, Santo Tomas East District.
From Karen Claire Fadrique. Hello, good afternoon, everyone, watching from Magulibas Elementary School, Kapalong West District.
We have Ma'am Hanilin Pilaes, hashtag Lumalaban.
I'm sure that's from Langilan District.
Ganun po, please continue to use our, like for this one, Ma'am Jennifer Dimape, hashtag One District, One Dream.
Of New Corelia.
So we can easily determine, and also our supervisors can easily determine you being active for this seminar workshop that we're having right now. We have Ma'am Ria May Ranes. We have also Ma'am Jeneline Orusco. Hi ma'am, hashtag winner ka from Tulalian National High School.
Hello to Ma'am Gina Palomata. Good afternoon, everyone, watching from Subaon Elementary School, Kapalong East District.
Ma'am Catherine Tanguan, good afternoon po everyone, watching from Kamansa Lower Elementary School, Asuncion District. Do not forget to use po your your hashtags. Hashtag SHINE, watching from Santo Niño Central Elementary School, Talaingod District. Okay, so from Talaingod District po yun, shout out din po to our PSDS for Talaingod District, Sir Dominic Dizon. Sir, hi, good afternoon po.
Okay, another Talaingod participant. Still watching from Barobo Elementary School. We also have here, shout out tayo kay Sir Ezra Lloyd Osano. Good afternoon, watching from Bangkay Integrated School of Lanilan District with hashtag Lumalaban.
And we have Mama Risa Gregas, hashtag Wow Asuncion. We have Singing Husay Productions. Good afternoon po. Watching at home from Santo Tomas National High School. Shout out po sa lahat ng mga taga Santo Tomas National High School.
Sino kaya si Singing Husay Production? Okay,
Sir J. Mart Alvite, our very wonderful and talented maestro from the Special Program in Arts of Santo Tomas National High School. We have Ma'am Janet Gines po. Good afternoon, everyone. Watching from Pipisan Elementary School, Langilan District, hashtag Lumalaban.
From Dorothy Ferranes, winner ka, watching from Santo Tomas National High School.
And we have Ma'am Marilyn Ismala, basta Carmen, hashtag more pa, I love Carmen. Alright, so later on po, we're going to have another set of shout-outs. So keep the comments coming as we gather different comments from our different teachers from different districts from the DepEd Division of Davao del Norte. Alright, and now for the introduction for our next topic this afternoon, for us to be heading to our very productive afternoon for day one. Our professor for this afternoon going to speak for us. He is a faculty member of the faculty of the University of Southeastern Philippines and currently the director of the Quality Assurance Division of the University of Southeastern Philippines. Please help me welcome with this topic, Design Ideas for Contextualized Assessment, Professor Henry C. Encabo.
workshop. And along the way, there are many ideas, and this is what you see in your experience for the next today and for the next few days. We began with, of course, Sir Bonnie telling you about contextualized learning, the contextualized classroom experience. And the reason why we do that actually is because in the College of Education in the university, we've always thought that each time we talk about assessment, we really have to talk about the teaching and learning experience. No? We cannot separate the two. They are inseparable. And it's pointless really to talk about assessments without touching the idea of how the classroom, not physically right now, maybe virtually or even in a long distance education setting, how we promote the learning experience. This is to say that actually we thought that it would not be good to talk about contextualized assessments if we do not understand that we cannot do contextualized assessment without contextualizing how we teach. No? Pointless po na mag-contextualize yung assessment natin. Pero yung ginagawa naman natin sa learning experience ng mga bata, the way we facilitate their learning, is not really contextualized. No? There is a big gap then on the implementation, and eventually we would not really achieve what we wanted to achieve sa ating program. No? So our discussion evolved around that idea, and that's why Sir Bonnie started with that concept, no, to get you to thinking, okay, ano nga ba yung contextualized teaching and learning experience? But we've also noted that DepEd has been on this around 2015 pa lang, no? And there has been a lot of issuances. In fact, we're very glad to learn that actually ang Davao region po, nasa mission statement niya, ang contextualized learning, no? And we are very happy to engage the region on that. Kasi po, sa university, we are trying to support various agencies, and in the College of Education, we thought of DepEd as really our number one partner in our engagements. Now, my role this afternoon is to talk about, is to give you a picture of what we will be doing. I'll be giving you examples of how contextualized assessments are done in the other places around the world, and how is it conceptualized even before the pandemic. Not that we are going to copy them, but to get you to thinking, paano natin i-apply yun sa ating konteksto sa Pilipinas. There was a question earlier that what should we do? No? What should we do in our TLE? If you ask me that question, ma'am, sasagutin ko ngayon. The idea is that it's really difficult to answer, and that was a question that was asked to us also when we gave the same ganitong setup na seminar workshop to CHED, to all the state universities on flexible assessment. Kasi kung sa DepEd po, ang focus natin ay contextualized assessment. In the Commission on Higher Education, ang problem po ay more sa flexibility. Paano maging flexible? And I think those are ideas which are pretty much connected to each other. And that question was asked, and I said, ma'am, honestly, we could not answer to that specific level because the challenge right now is to think through it. And our goal in the seminar workshop is to take you to a journey of thinking through what might we be able to do as a department, as a regional office of the Department of Education, in order to really promote contextualized learning and assessment in our own schools, classrooms, and even divisions, or even for the entire region. In the future, we would be very glad as a university to help you with that. Palagi naman po kaming nagre-respond sa mga requests ng DepEd if ever there are those types of requests for technical assistance. Now, my presentation, let me share to you my screen. As I have said, focuses on design ideas. Bakit design ideas? Bakit what do we mean by design ideas? Actually, in the more layman's term, we call it examples. The truth is, we learn a lot by examples. No? When we were very young, we learned from our teachers to look at what the examples are for particular concepts. No? Naalala mo, nung nasa grade 1, 2, 3 pa lang tayo, the first thing to learn is to copy. No? To copy. And copying is a valid way of learning. The same thing din po sa adult education, no? And sa professional practice. When we talk of professional practice po, the same yan sa idea natin in an in-service training like this one, that we learn to copy ideas, not necessarily to copy the same thing, to copy ideas, to learn from examples and use that in our own practice. No? So I will be presenting to you ideas of contextualized assessment, how it has evolved through time, no? Since probably the earliest conceptions of it, how it has come to a point of what is the more dominant narrative about it, and we'll take you now to the idea of the PISA assessment. No? I know you are very familiar with the PISA assessment, and it's a very controversial one. And I know that DepEd was heavily criticized for it, but I truly am supportive of Dr. Briones when she said that, we just have got to do it because it's a way for us to know where we are around the world. And an important thing for us really is to realize, ano bang nangyari sa PISA? What is it like? What is it like? And how do we respond to the challenge that PISA has shown us? No? Hindi man pwedeng ganun lang talaga yung Pilipinas, that we accept that we are at the bottom in English reading and in English reading science and mathematics. No? Hindi pwedeng ganun eh. So one realization when PISA came out, one realization that we kami sa assessment group, no, we were talking is that, ano ba itong tsura ng PISA na to? Because we're used to the teams, right? Teams, we also are at the bottom ng teams exam sa math at saka science. When we take a look at it, we realize that actually what we have are tests that at a high level, highly contextualized. In fact, nung tinignan namin ang framework, palaging nandoon yung term na context. No? And so, thinking about that, siguro when the initial discussions with Dr. Berandoy on the idea of, let's do a contextualized assessment project with USEP and DepEd region. And we thought, maybe we'll introduce PISA because we realized na merong kakulangan doon at baka pwede nating i-address kahit nasa pandemic. And so I'll show you examples. No? Basically, just examples. I have not seen much examples in DepEd, but I'll show you one example, a very good example that I have found in the DepEd module. And I hope it will inspire you to think, pwede naman pala eh. And at maganda yung example na yun kasi napapaisip ako noon, no? Bakit hindi naman simpleng ginawa lang? Ganun. Pero maganda yung ginawa ni teacher. I've not secured a copy of it. I saw that example because my wife is also a teacher in DepEd. And as a husband, I helped her print out mga modules. And I saw the example and I was thinking, ang ganda na example na to. So maybe I should use that here. But it's a long, I think it was started when the pandemic started. So design ideas, yun po, pag-aaralan natin design ideas of what these contextualized assessments really are. So as an outline, ito po yung mangyayari natin sa ating presentation. No? We'll focus on what are contextualized assessments really, what does it mean? what are the examples that we can get from performance-based assessments? Because initially, the idea of contextualized assessments is about, performance-based assessments. And you are very familiar with the idea of GRASP, the GRASP model. But we will try to see how other countries are doing that. And I'll show you three examples of videos from schools in the United States. And not just that because we are looking at them as, the best example, but it's a way of reflecting ano bang nandun that pwede nating kunin at pwede nating i-adapt. No? And then, of course, examples from PISA. And we will reflect from those examples, ano ba yung key design lessons that we should consider when we are going to make or design our own contextualized assessments or tests for this purpose in this seminar. Let me inform you also that the output really for the entire, when we designed this training seminar, the output that was envisioned is for you to come up with a test, and not that you are probably going to, pwede namang gamitin in some way or another, but that kind of test is probably not the same test that you have done. There might be some similarities to it, but we will introduce the idea of what we will learn from PISA, anong klaseng mga test yung nasa PISA, and probably try to calibrate our own test items to that kind of assessment. Sabi ko nga, ang PISA po ay isang form ng contextualized assessment. Maybe we can take a look at that and learn from that example. Ayan. Let me begin with the question. Ano nga ba yung contextualized assessment? Bonnie kanina said a lot of ideas about contextualization. And those are really beautiful ideas to imagine. My colleagues were saying, kahit siguro kami sa university kailangan. Actually, we do from time to time. But the university experience is quite similar also with DepEd, and we do recognize that we have some challenges to deal with as well. Nung nagsimula ang pandemic, ang daming mga tanong. And our answer was what we call as a flexible learning and flexible assessment. We did not really specify that it is contextualized. Pero kasi yung outcomes-based education in which a philosophy and framework that we are working in already is already a very much contextualized framework. Nagsisimula kasi kami just like Bonnie said kanina, nagsisimula kami sa job roles, expectations of what our students can do with what they know. Yun ang pinaka-isip namin. Kasi kung what they know lang, hindi yun contextualized. The more contextualized way of viewing things is what our students can do with what they know, right? So, and basically can be part of what we call as a contextualized assessment. But I asked my students, I asked my students before this webinar. I asked my students, what is it really you mean by contextualized assessment? Every time you hear, my students are actually graduate students. Some of them are undergraduate students. So most of the graduate students I asked are from DepEd. Your teachers in the region, of course. Most of our students in the graduate school are coming from Region 11. And they have very interesting answers, and we have very interesting conversation. I also asked my undergraduate students about it, and they have also nice ideas. And I will show you one example that our undergraduate students have designed as an output in my assessment class. And so what did these teachers say? Una, they said that, pag sinasabing contextualized assessment, it is something related to the real world. Just like Bonnie said, totoo yan. Totoo. Kasi pag context, pinag-iisipan the real world experience. And that is something, not just that it's an experience, but it is something that students should be able to relate to. So may relationship siya sa perception ng student that this is a material that I can easily understand, that I can easily make meaningful in my life. the relatedness, the idea of relatedness with the real world is a perception that should have been elicited by an assessment which we call as contextualized. So, yun ay importanteng idea. Hindi mali yun. Tamang idea yun. Tamang idea. Second idea was that assessment should be something that uses local materials. And this is the one which is, I think, very much emphasized kanina. No? The problem with contextualization is that sometimes, if you look at other examples around the globe, around the world, they are very high-tech in nature and natural because their society is also like that. But our society, or even our context in our region, while there are places that can have access to technology, the reality is that madalas wala pa rin yung magandang access niyon. No? When the COVID-19 pandemic started, the first thing that the university did was to survey our students. No? Gumawa kami ng survey. How many have internet? How many have cell phones? How many have... And we realized that while around 80% or almost 80 to 90% of our students have access to internet, the speed of the internet matters. So medyo, whether we wanted to say that we will go online, we cannot, because ang reality is that would technically be not feasible. So we then decided to think about ano yung mga concepts na pwede nating isipin, no? Ano yung mga ideas na pwede nating gawin to address that need. Because the reality is we cannot expect this to end soon. While we are saying na baka end to ng ilang months, na it took us 1 year, hindi pa tayo natapos. No? And when we are discussing in our strategic planning, baka mukhang another year pa or more years. We don't know. The last pandemic, yung bubonic plague, lasted for around 7 years. Are we going to last that long? So there are really hard questions that we have to answer there. No? And if you talk about contextualization, you'd have to eventually talk about what is there that is available. What is there that is available? So pag sinasabing contextualize, look at your environment. Ito lang naman tayo, hindi natin ipilit kung anong wala. So tama din yung sinasabi, if we say contextualize, we definitely have to use local materials. We need not look at things where we don't have. No? Although we may be able to acquire some through government procurement, pero hindi naman totally mangyayari that we can provide for all. For instance, the university said that we will procure laptops for rent so that our students can use and work for laptops. Pero hindi naman namin lahat talaga mapoprovide yung estudyante sa buong university with a laptop. That's, well, technically impossible then. And we can only have it for them rented, no, for the meantime. So we'd have to make use. So yung nangyari, we have modules, just like what DepEd said, did. No? And in fact, when I was having class last summer, I asked my Project Eagle students, what are you doing? And they said a lot of examples, and they showed me beautiful things that DepEd is doing. I'm very impressed by the idea yung Trompa Eskwela. Napaka-unique naman yun. Meron pang parang sa bangka or school at the sea, something like that idea na i-present ng isang estudyante, which is really interesting in a way. So these are things that we do, no, with what we have. We use the local materials. That's contextualization. No? Another idea posited by my students is that it's actually meaningful and interactive. This one is a little bit, medyo kailangan pag-isipan kasi totoo nga naman meaningful. But considering that we are what we have right now, where we are not in a face-to-face setting, the interactive thing may be quite limited at all, no? So, or maybe not at all. Wala talagang, mahirap talaga yung interaction. And when we did a study about that, isa tong challenge sa instructional process, no? How do we create teacher-student interaction despite the fact that we are not having a face-to-face setting? We have to realize that the interaction between the teacher and the student creates, very important learning experience for students. And that actually helps them retain much of what we are trying to teach them, no? in whatever learning area that we are into. So the other idea also is that, contextualized assessments are authentic. Sir, baka redundant lang yan sa number 1. Actually, may pagkakaiba. No? Kasi pag sinabi mong authentic, pwede kasing real world experience, a real world related to the real world. The real world may not be, the experience that we are talking about is not really authentic. Authentic really means about dealing with the challenges of the real world. Ang term ni PISA dito is the challenges of the real world. Ano yung mga challenges sa totoong buhay that is actually quite related to the content that we are dealing with? And that's a very important concept, and I'm very happy that they said that. Sabi nila, sir, kasi, di ba minsan pag magbibigay tayo ng example, we thought it is contextualized kasi may sinabi natin na, halimbawa, contextualized, bangkerohan. Pero yung experience naman na pinapatry natin nag-solve sa bata, hindi naman talaga yun ang totoong experience, totoong authentic experience. One example I could remember in the sharing was that when you go to the market, for example, what's the most authentic experience there, a mathematical experience there? No? Is it a problem of how much change you would get? Or is it a problem of how much budget do you have para pagsaktuhin mo at mabili mo ang gusto mong bilihin? Diba, there are differences there. Now, you can have a problem of how much change do you have when you buy this and that. Considering that you're going to buy gulay and everything. Pwede namang may context yun. No? It's also contextualized in a way because you're saying that it's a real experience. No? Pagbibili ng gulay, pagkukuha ng change. Pero mas maganda yung sinasabing, pagpupunta ka sa palengke, ano ba ang authentic challenge doon? Diba pagpupunta ka sa palengke, you have money. And when you go to the palengke, you decide what to buy. And the thing in your mind is, kasya ba niya akong kwarta? No? Or do I have enough money? And that's a mathematical experience that can actually serve as a problematic situation for a contextualized learning assessment. So, yun ay magandang mga konsepto ng sinasabing what contextualized assessments are. Yeah? So you see, my students are actually right. What we have been talking all along, earlier this morning, can be captured by these answers, and these are your teachers in the Department of Education. So for me, alam na to ng ano bang bagong i-introduce ni Yusef, no? Ano bang bagong i-introduce namin sa inyo? Ayan, perhaps that is something that you should ask us later, no? Ayan. So question is this really, is it an atheist instead of an apple thing? I found this meme in the social media, and he was talking about ito ba ay tungkol sa atis or sa apple, or can we use one meme that I saw was that A for accelerator ng sasakyan. Well, of course that's a different context, no? But the question is it really about just translating things or connecting things to the real world? The answer actually may not really that so. And let me introduce to you the idea that what one of my students said. Sabi niya, you take a real life situation and make that a real problem. That's contextualization. Ang sabi ko naman, diba mahirap yung idea na yan? Halimbawa, sige nga, pag-usapan natin. Halimbawa, may lesson tayo on polynomials or rational polynomials or rational functions. Ano yun sa totoong buhay? Ano yun sa totoong buhay? And there was silence. And the students would, bitaw sir, nung registered manisipon. The thing is, sometimes it's really difficult to think about that. We teach in our content in the curriculum and find meaning to the real life. It takes a lot of thinking actually. And it takes a lot of processing in our minds. And I suggested, why don't we take a look at when we talk about polynomials, isang application nun nasa economics. Sabi ko sa kanila. So they've gone, okay, let's go find out what is in economics that makes polynomials relevant to the students. So sometimes ganon. It's not just about finding the situation. It's about connecting the problems and making sure that these are the relevant problems that are being solved in real life. It does not make sense actually. Just to put in the situation, make it, put some story there and call it contextualized. That does not really work that way, no? Ayan. What does research really say about that? No? Ano bang sinasabi ng research? No. When we, in the university, when we try to look for answers to our questions, sometimes we look at what's being done, or what was done. And along the way, when we try to respond to the idea of not having face-to-face classes, ang isa sa nakita namin is, the idea of contextualized and flexible learning. And one idea that came out was a research done by Bransford in 2000. Sabi niya, ang contextualized assessment are organized and focused on core and important ideas. And this is very important kasi later on, I will be asking you sort of think through na lang. Tingnan natin yung MELCs natin, our most essential learning competencies. Anong big idea ang nandun sa mga MELCs natin? Why are we teaching decomposing and composing numbers? Why are we teaching fractions or having students to add fractions? What's the core idea there? When we meant core and important idea, that is an idea important to a real-life experience. No? Bakit tayo nagtuturo ng polynomial functions? Ayan, sa mga math. Ang hirap niya sa math eh. No? Bakit tayo nagtuturo ng pre-calculus? Later, I will show you an example how pre-calculus is actually working in the real world. No? And that takes a lot of thinking on the part of the teacher, no? The part of those who designed the test. Kasi minsan, hindi natin alam din talaga yung application ng mga concepts na itinuturo natin. Even I would even say myself, I could not do that for every mathematics subjects out there. No? Although ngayon, tinuturo ko lang naman ay probability at statistics, I try to find time to think about, let's play Lotto. Tapos baguhin natin yung Lotto. One problem I'm giving to my students, okay, baguhin natin yung Lotto. We're working with Lotto wherein the numbers can be, in different order would still make you win. What if one number is fixed and the others are not? Ano pa bagong probability noon? So my students will say, oh, okay. I'll try to think through about that. Paano mangyari yung pagbabago sa problem if we are dealing with that kind of problem now. No? It changes the way things are being done. Changes the way the problem is being approached. So bago mo yung approach na yan. What if ganito ang mangyari? So, but the core idea remains to be the same. It is something that will help students think through certain things in life that are actually probabilistic in nature. So hindi siya deterministic that isa lang 1 and 0 at binary lang ang choices. No? Sometimes the binary choices result to some probability of things happening. So the idea remains there. Every time we say contextualized assessment, ito yung idea na ano ba ang malaking idea dyan? Ano yung big idea why we teach this particular topic or content? What is important here? Yan ang tanong. Okay?
Sir Henry.
Okay.
Sir Henry, nakamute po kayo. Okay. A while ago, sir, I don't know if sa inyo po yun, ang may aso po na tumatahol sa background.
Yep, that was my dog. Sorry. Yan. Can you see that? Ayan, let me play that again. Ni Mata, she was just sleeping earlier. No, yan. Okay, let's go back here. So ito yung big idea. Yan. Pag sinasabing contextualized assessment, ano yung big idea? That's what research was trying to say to us. The other one is that Bransford was saying is that contextualized assessment actually enables students to effectively apply their knowledge to the challenges Ito yung sinasabi ko, the challenges of the everyday life. No? So it's not just about really any context out there. It's a context of an everyday life at home, at school, at community. That's what the focus of contextualized assessments is. No? Hindi siya lang basta-bastang using a material without looking at whether it's something really relevant to the life of the student. But there is also another idea, no, that kung i-rephrase pala natin, no, halimbawa, di ba sabi ng estudyante ko kanina, you take real life situation. So i-rephrase natin yun. No? Ang sasabihin natin, you take a real life experience, you take a real life challenge, and you find out if that is a math problem. So that's how we think about it. No? So ibig sabihin, pag nagdi-design tayo ng question or problematic situation, you look at what is really the challenge in real life. No? If we want to make use of the palengke situation, what is the challenge in the palengke? No? If you want to take a challenge about designing houses or designing buildings, what is really the challenge there? No? Later, I will show you an example how it can even be applied to very young students. No? And kanina Bonnie was saying that baka mahirap sa mga bata. Let's see, we try to take a look at it. Baka pwede naman gawin. I'll show you an example how it's done. No? Ayan. So the other idea is that contextualized assessments actually prepared students to meet the challenges of the future. Ito yung ina-emphasize ni Bonnie kanina. Kasi in outcomes-based education, we always think of, halimbawa sa amin, sa College of Education, yung mga estudyante namin, they will eventually become teachers. So anything that we throw at them is a preparation for them to become teachers in any context that they will be. Halimbawa, if I am teaching in technology, educational technology, if we ask them to develop instructional material, we would add another level of challenge. For example, what if that material, what if your context is in a barrio where there is no kuryente, where there is no internet? So magbabago yun kasi they have to reimagine things. No? What if yung context mo ay isang paaralan that are mostly composed of very poor students and don't have access to technology? So these students now, these students of ours, will have something to think about and meet the challenges that they will probably experience when they go to DepEd. No? So contextualization is not just simply about the everyday life, but Brandon and Bransford and Schwartz are saying, no, it's not about just everyday life. It's about the future also. The future that students will go to. And this is very much relevant if you have students na nandoon na sa senior high school. Remember sa senior high school, supposedly ang idea nun, that they should be aligned to a particular degree or profession or career that they will be interested to work on. Halimbawa, nung nasa STEM, they probably would want to go to the sciences, the engineering, and the technology courses. So if we want to prepare them for the challenges of the future, we'd have to think of problems which they will encounter probably when they go to college or when they go to outside in the field of work. Ganun din po sa university. We talk about outcomes-based education as if years from now, what is it that our students should be able to do? And our assessments are built in our syllabus because right from the start, in-identify po namin ano yung kaya niyang gawin at ano ang evidence ng kaya niyang gawin. So for example, sa College of Education, we're saying that one of the outcomes is that we would have students who can develop innovative strategies. Yun ang outcomes namin. Ano ang learning evidence? No? Yun ang madalas tinatanong namin. So when we talk of those things, no, as a challenge to the future, we are actually contextualizing things. So that clarifies things now. Pag sinasabi natin contextualized or relevant real-world context, we talk about two things. One It is the everyday, present, everyday life of their student that we are dealing with. So we take a look at ano bang everyday life niya na nakaka-relate siya. No? At nakikita niya yung challenges sa totoong buhay. Ano yung nasa everyday life niya? The one which is in the environment. And which is quite difficult because different students may have different types of environment. No? That was the question kanina. What if iba-iba? Do we tailored fit? Do we make different assessments ba? Sometimes there are also commonalities that we can focus on. No? Common ideas that we can focus on. Kasi there's also principle in assessment that there is what we call as economy of things. No? Hindi pwedeng masyado ding mabigat ang gagawin nating assessment that we forget the idea that we are actually teaching also. No? So there's balance between assessments and the balance of the instructional practice. No? But at the same time, when we talk of real-world context, that's about preparation for also for the future. So pag sinasabing context, dalawa po yun. No? Present at saka future. And that has something that we have to consider when we design our assessments. Kasi baka puro present lang tinitingnan natin. No, take a look at the future. Ano ba yung future na pwedeng mapakita natin na pwedeng mangyari sa buhay ng isang estudyante? Kasi marirelate din niya yun, lalo na sa senior high school. You are in ABM, that means you probably have to go to entrepreneurship, accounting, business administration, business management. You are in humanities, you'd probably go to the arts, you'd probably go to teaching, no? Doon ka papunta. You are in STEM, you go to probably look at engineering problems, mathematics, pure mathematics problems, science problems, technology problems, doon, computer information technology problems. Yeah. Those are things that we see through when we have what we call as contextualization. Yeah. So consider contextualization. Daming idea, no? Daming idea. If you take a look at it, mabigat at saka masyadong mahirap siguro if we take it very seriously, no? Imagine looking at the everyday life. Imagine looking at the future of the student. It's a lot of thinking. It's not something that you just think out of the blue. No? And now, other researchers also say that this is now actually an idea shift from knowledge to knowledge use. No? This is what I like, and this is one of the most recent ideas about contextualization, no? Contextualized assessment. Dati, we focus on knowledge, not knowledge. What researchers are now saying from starting around even in 2020 is that pandemic na po yan. No? They're saying that what we have actually, and we want as a contextualized assessment, is an assessment that is focusing in knowledge in use. Ano ba yung knowledge in use? Let's try to clarify that, no? Or that it is something that emphasizes integrated knowledge. Yan. Same concept. Yan. Now, what ano yung knowledge in use? Knowledge in use actually refers to the application of core ideas in a learning area. Yun yung sinasabi ko kanina, that we take a core idea in your competency. Titingnan natin yung sa MELCs natin. Kasi when we start designing assessment, the foundation for an assessment is always your curriculum. And our curriculum right now is a shortened, streamlined version, which we call as the MELCs, right? So, yung MELCs na yun, titingnan natin, ano ang relevant ideas ng MELCs na yun? Yeah. Ano bang big idea dyan? No? But, pag sinasabing knowledge in use is how to use that in the big idea. No? And when we realize, when we use something, we apply something, application is actually cross-cutting in nature. No? Ibig sabihin, when you try to be solving things, no, you're not just using one competency. You are using a lot of competencies and a lot of concepts which are related to each other. So the realization of knowledge in use is not the same just as an application concept in Bloom's taxonomy. No? It is really a concept wherein there is an idea that a competency may be related to other competencies, that in fact, your assessment may assess different competencies at one time, may give you a picture of how related competencies work together. And it must be something which is an engaging real-world use. So pag sinasabing knowledge in use, ito ay something that engages the student to the real world. It is something that is cross-cutting. It is something that's standardized. Let's take a look as an example. Ito yun. Pag knowledge, ito yun. Knowing how to characterize a body of water such as Davao River. Okay. Ang tanong, may context ba ang knowledge? Yes, meron. The Davao River is a relatable context if you live in Davao City. Contextualization ba din ito? Yes, this is contextualization, but this is the old contextualization. No? The new contextualization in recent literature will tell you that it's no longer knowledge. It's the knowledge in use. So maybe what is the knowledge in use that we can think about when we talk about Davao River? Remember, ano ang knowledge in use? Ano ang big idea nun? Anong big idea sa Davao River? Probably Davao River is polluted. So the knowledge in use is the application of certain competencies and concepts to address a particular real-world challenge. So ang bagong contextualization will tell you, okay, let's find out how to reduce the pollution in Davao River. So di ba magkaiba? But these two are what we call as contextualized ideas and contextualized assessment. Halimbawa nito, bibigay ako ng example ng fill in the blanks. Tapos I will use Davao context, a storyline, or a multiple choice. It would still be, contextualized, right? Kasi ginamit ko naman dun our idea. Pero if you look at what is being developed right now, pag dumating tayo sa pag-uusapang PISA, kasi ang PISA is what we call as a knowledge in use assessment. Naiiba and this is something that our students are not used to. Kaya a lot of people say, or experts are saying, no, lalo na sa those who have been following PISA, the reason why the Philippines is poorly performing is because we are so used to knowledge, but we are not so much into knowledge in use. So how can our students really perform at the top level if we are focusing only at the knowledge level? It makes sense, of course, because PISA is a test of knowledge in use. And if you are students who are so used to using knowledge ideas, mahirapan talaga yun kasi this is a different level. This is a higher level. They have the same target competencies, but the requirement for performance is definitely more integrated. Kaya the other term for knowledge in use is what we call as integrated knowledge. And if you look at studies done on this aspect, nangunguna po ang science dito, ang science education. Kasi in science, when they try to solve problems, they have cross-cutting concepts. The concepts are mixed together to address a certain problem. They're not isolated. The problems are not isolated. Sometimes sa math, meron pa kaming mga problem na very isolated. So we tend to focus on that kind of level of procedural knowledge. But the thing now is we are going to imagine ano yung assessments na gagawin natin sa seminar workshop na ito. We'd have to use the idea that we are working on knowledge in use. Finding out, for example, how to reduce the pollution in Davao River. Finding out how to budget your money. That's a different one. Or finding out how to predict the next surge of infections in Davao City. Well, that's a real problem that a lot of mathematicians are working on. And they're still trying to solve that problem. Those are what we call as, more contextualized assessments. And yun ang challenge po natin ngayon sa seminar workshop na ito. Kasi ang idea po is paano natin gagawin yung knowledge in use assessments na yun. Paano natin ita-target yung contextualized assessments na yun. Okay? Ayan. So, if you trace back, the history of contextualized assessments, makikita po natin that around in the 1990s, when we were younger, of course, hindi naman bago yung contextualized assessment. The term that was, if you look at your survey, a lot of literature on that, ang term tawag nun real world application. Hence the term application sa Bloom's taxonomy. When we were studying as teacher education students, uso na yung application. I remember my cooperating teachers in DepEd. They are now in the Davao City Division, sina Sir Kagape at saka si Ma'am Lydia Ampo. They were my cooperating teacher. They were my cooperating teachers when I was in practicum. And I remember them giving me an assignment dati.
using throughout the year.
There are teams of 3 or 4 students. Some of them are air traffic controllers. Some are pilots.
The project has physically 2 settings. There is a group of air traffic controllers housed in one of the classrooms.
You're going to go 66 degrees for 65 feet and 3 inches.
They provide coordinates to their co-pilots in the gym via FaceTime.
We used a map of the US that was to scale of the gymnasium and told our co-pilots the angle measures that they were to use and the distances they were to go to find the next mission.
The missions are some kind of disaster.
I think it's that one.
An earthquake or a flood. Someone needs to get to them to rescue them. When they scan the code, that will take them to a wiki space that has the disaster described and what they need to do in order to rescue the people.
A hurricane hit oil rig situated on a platform off a 1,500-yard long sandy beach on the shore of Louisiana. From which end of the beach should the worker leave? Okay, so I labeled 1,500 as B, so then that's the side opposite the rig. That's angle side angle.
I think that's the law of sines.
I think you're right because we have two angles.
Throughout the course, they keep a list of formulas that are useful in solving the trig problem. So they have to decide what formula to use to successfully complete their particular mission.
Each team has to solve 4 missions in order to score perfectly on the exam. Every member in the team gets the same grade, so they are dependent on each other.
38 feet, 3 inches.
For example, it's a sine equation, so it says y equals sine x, and the vertical change is the number in front of the sine.
Okay, so it'd be 10 cosine of 250x.
It helped pull together different concepts that we had worked on all year and use them in a real life application.
It's making a function.
We're looking for the accuracy of how they use the trigonometry to solve the mission. The co-pilots have to turn in all of their calculations. They can't just give an answer. Air traffic controllers will submit all of their work also. Mission 6 was the forest fire in Oregon.
They did this correctly. Most people, I think their error is in not taking the bearing from north-south line.
All right, I'm done with all my calculations. If you guys need help.
We observe how well they are communicating with each other. We will not help them solve the problems. We're guiding them.
Think about how you calculate amplitude.
So it would be like 0 10 minus 0 over 2, so it's actually 5.
Even though we had some difficulties, it was a learning experience that I wouldn't take back.
One of the students we talked to who's in the calculus class this year, he said it was his favorite final, and we said, yes, but what did you retain from it? And he could tell us the exact problems, and he could tell us the math that he used.
Ayan po, isang example na sinabi natin kanina, okay, about Hampton High. No? So you see, Hampton High is 99% graduation rate, higher than the 83% of the state. And they have been consistently the top school. And their method is focusing on more contextualized performance-based assessment. You might say, sir, masyado namang yun, high-tech. Pero tingnan nyo, anong dapat matutunan natin? It's a pre-calculus lesson. What did they do? No? Ito yun. No? They focus on the big idea, the comprehensive idea about pre-calculus. Saan ba nagagamit yung pre-calculus? And the teachers came in together and they had a brainstorming. So there is now an enabling aspect to designing what we call as contextualized assessment. Kailangan pag-usapan siya, hindi lang isang tao nag-iisip nun. You have to take a look at the big idea. That's why you are grouped later on, because we want you to discuss, okay, ano bang a big comprehensive idea tungkol sa topic na ito? And pag sinasabing bearings, trigonometric functions, these are used in directing pilots. So anong ginawa nila? Some of the students can play as pilots, some of the students can play as air traffic controllers, and they have to communicate with each other using bearings and etc. And then they put in some problems. Okay, here's the challenge. If you're going in a relief mission as a pilot to deliver goods, probably this is the problem. My forest fire, and forest fire creates smoke, and the smoke, is a problem for the airplanes. And you see, that's a very realistic problem that people in the actual field are actually facing. So you have students trying to solve problems in a very novel way. No? Baga, hindi siya yung traditional textbook problems natin na makikita. No? Hindi siya ganun, ang contextualized assessment at performance-based assessment. It is an application that is based on integrated knowledge. Maraming ideas dun eh. Maliban sa trigonometric functions, they have to understand the environment. They have to understand directing planes. No? And they have to understand piloting, because that's what is supposed to be the problem is all about. No? And they are what we call as simulations of the real world problems. Ang question dito ngayon is ganito. Supposing sa modules natin can have simulations. Or supposing sa mga estudyante na teachers natin who are going online, because some DepEd teachers are also going online. Can we do this kind of simulations? Can we do this type of assessment for our students? Perhaps yes. Maybe we need to find a way. No? Yun lang naman ang pagiging open-minded. Okay? Now let's take a look at another one. This time I want you to look at an example coming from the elementary and young kids. Kasi tanong kanina, bagay ba ito sa mga bata? You know? Teka, hindi pa pala. It's about, ito math muna. Yeah. I'll show you another example, although my kids na dito. May mga bata na. Like, they take that one. Yan. Okay. This is about the Two Rivers Public Charter School.
So how can we improve it so that it's clear that there's more than one thing?
You could just go to the tab that says that category. The subcategory of what makes an ecosystem healthy.
Awesome ideas.
Because our students solve real-world problems, they see themselves as important, thoughtful people who are able to grapple with really tough problems and make decisions that have meaning.
Our school is a preschool through 8th grade public charter school in Washington. Our mission is really to help all students develop a lifelong love of learning.
So keep cutting.
Problem-based learning is at the heart of what we do. We think that learning is really important, but it's for a purpose. And that purpose for our kids is to solve some kind of problem that's important to them and to their lives.
What was the problem we're trying to solve? People think that spiders are disgusting and gross.
Yeah. What are the stories that we read about spiders? How are the spiders portrayed? Jonas?
In a horrible way. People think that spiders are like scary or dangerous, and actually they're not.
Right. We've been working on our spider stories for quite a while because they are the way that we're solving our problem. Why write stories?
It changed people's minds.
And what else can it change?
Their hearts.
Their hearts. Every student studied their own spider. They did research on all of the attributes of that spider. Then they had to take those facts and create a story around them.
The spider I've been researching is the broad-faced sack spider. My story is about this little spider trying to find a home and how the problems it gets through to find the perfect place to live. It's Daddy Longlegs. This writing project is actually helping us learn how to write better because you can look back at your research and then you can know like the facts.
He dove to eat the spider. What I hope that I'm building are like tiny problem solvers.
There was a spitting spider.
It's a really appropriate way for them to practice those lifelong skills.
The bird didn't see him, so he went past the edge.
When I think about how to identify a quality problem, I think about what is the authentic context that I can situate that problem within. Our school's called Two Rivers, and one of those two rivers is the Anacostia that is not swimmable or fishable.
Our website needs to teach kids all about the river ecosystem, both its problems and how we can make it healthy again.
So they're creating a website.
So start to think about this third question. What changes can we make to improve?
We get to teach kids about the Anacostia and what makes the ecosystem healthy.
Partnering with the Anacostia Watershed Society is giving kids the idea that this is a real world connection.
We work with Two Rivers. The students are really taking part in an authentic restoration project.
I like that the topic isn't taught to you. You have to figure stuff out. We go on field studies so we can see what it actually looks like. Then solutions like green arrows, wetland plants.
It's not that we're looking at, what's happening with the rainforest. Everything that they do every day is impacting the water. It's much more powerful for them to be involved in something that's part of their own community.
As kids move through our school, they all are working within these problems.
Did it make you like the spiders a little more?
Our youngest kids are working on projects that speak to things in their immediate environment.
Interesting.
But as kids move forward in class, they work with more philosophical kinds of problems outside of their direct community.
Is your conclusion covering a variety of stances on gene editing?
So what we want kids to be able to do is get in the practice of weighing information, of grappling with really difficult things that don't have clear answers, considering different points of view, considering different points of data, asking for expert opinions, and ultimately coming up with a solution. Those are things we all do every day in our lives, and they make our work better. And so we want kids to be able to do that.
Oh my gosh, we have a Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube.
Ayan po, no? The Two Rivers Public Charter School in Washington. It's also one of the top performing schools in the States. No? And kikita nyo, they make use of their immediate environment. Kasi nga tawag sa kanila Two River Schools, right? So they look at the idea, for example, of using that context that they have, live in a river, beside a river, and make use of that in the problems that they are working students on. No? Yeah. Okay. What can we learn from those things? No. Number one is that we have to think about what they're doing. Is that every time they talk about contextualized assessment, it's always a problem-oriented or problem-based assessment. No. They'd have to work with the real problems in the community. So pag sinasabing contextualized, think of ano bang problem sa community that our students can work on, and what is it in our curriculum that we can actually integrate that and make our students learn from that. That's more than actually just trying to follow or memorize certain things and concepts in science, but it's actually making use of science in real life. And if you take that learning experience, that's a higher level learning experience than just answering worksheets or the investigations, the inquiries that students make are actually more relevant than just understanding what they read. They read, of course, they figure out certain things, but solving a real world problem is what makes it even more challenging. Sabi nga ng mga bata what's the problem with spiders? Well, spiders are really, awful, right? That's a problem for them. So they try to take a look at it, learn science from it. In fact, they're studying the anatomy of it. And that's what makes them unique, and that's what makes it more contextualized. And they are saying that a quality problem, a quality problematic situation that we use in our assessment is actually situated in an authentic context. Ibig sabihin, totoong problem siya. The real problem, the big problem, the relevant problem that is being faced in India. So, kung ikaw ang tindera sa palengke, anong big problem mo? Kung ikaw ang police, anong problem na mo? If you are the scientist, for example, or if you are the teacher, so there is some kind of role that they give to the students to think about. Suppose you're ganito, we want to make our river clean. How do we do that? So They have to partner and they have to collaborate with parents and experts. So collaboration is something that we can probably work on at this time of the pandemic. After all, sinasabi natin, ang mga parents natin are co-teachers, but our co-teachers are not trained teachers, right? They are not trained teachers. So maybe we can ask them to do something else, like helping out, really trying to find out certain problems, and they would have naturally to be engaged in the problem itself. So maybe when we design a contextualized assessments, we probably have to think, ano ba yung problem? Ano yung authentic problem? And that's what we want to see also in when we design what we call as a contextualized knowledge in use assessments. And this one is my favorite, the tiny house project. I think we can do this in the Philippines. And let me show you this one. This is a very cute and interesting story about kids trying to build a tiny house and how different subjects are being integrated. Like they have math and vocabulary in one context together, and that's difficult to see. But let's try to watch this.
For this project, you are going to design a home. You're going to plan a home. You're going to build a home. This project, the Tiny House Project, is where students are designing tiny houses. Remember, when you're going to build this, we have to think about who's living in the house. There was a boom in tiny homes, just the idea of living in one, just because in the city, the population is growing and there's more people, less room. And maybe a tiny house is more cost efficient, more green. Would you like to have your own room? Yeah. Would you like to have your own space? Yeah. Okay. The driving question was, how can we, as a design team, design a house for clients, taking into consideration budget and location and personal preferences? The entry event was Minecraft. So they used Minecraft to build just a house that they would build for their family.
This is inside the house. This is where, like, the sofa, and over here is where I sleep.
They're able to use their creativity. They're able to just be free and just to build without anybody giving them parameters. Back to our project and this driving question. What do we need to know to answer this question?
Like, say they have family that's gonna come live with them. They have to think about that. Like, have a guest room.
The Minecraft building sparked, like, how many rooms do we build? And so they came up with their need to knows. Any other need to knows you'd like to add?
You have to imagine how much it costs.
Well, we have to know, like, how many kids there are or how big the family is. And what are those questions that you think you should ask the client? And they're like, yeah. And so we come back to the driving question. We came back to the need to knows. And we came back to their entry event just so that they can get some questions that are appropriate for their project to their clients.
What is the minimum square footage you want?
400 feet.
Do you want a second story?
Yes, second story would be good.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, that'd be cool.
I think it's important for them to know that there's a real client because it gives the project more authenticity.
Would you like to have a garden outside your house?
Yes. When they form a relationship with the client, then they start to care about what the client thinks.
This is the final product. This is what the construction documents look like, but not too different from that concept drawing, right? We have the bedrooms up here, master bedroom in the corner.
So I asked an expert to come and present to the students, and he was actually a structural engineer.
You're gonna see elevations. Just kind of look at what kind of information is on there. How do you tell a wall is a wall? You can see you put two lines parallel to one another.
And we talked about making blueprints and what does that look like, or having a layout.
Oh, look, it even has plants right here.
Wow. These are called elevations.
I think they were really excited about seeing the blueprints because it was just real things that they can hold, they can touch, and they can see, and they know that engineers touched it and any engineers made this, and this is what we're going to do. All right, we're gonna move into our next rotation. On this side, we have front row and RAS kids for listening to reading and answering comprehension questions. So as we plan the project, we think about the standards that we're going to be using. In this project, we're using opinion writing or reading of informational text, and we integrate that into like a daily rotation of in English language arts. So this is an article from NASA, and it's called Tiny House Fun. If you have something you want to highlight, like you want to get back to, or a word that you really don't understand and you want to learn more about that, you can highlight some words. So on that day, I had a group and we were looking at informational reading. And then another group, they were listening to a book that had to do with houses. And then another group was working on vocabulary, and all the vocabulary is part of the project. And then another group was just doing their read to self, and that's just books that they're interested in, so they're practicing reading independently. Write your name at the top. For math rotations, we call it math with the teacher, math with technology, and math with a partner. The house size that your client wanted. And then I'm working with the group, and we're really looking at area and perimeter and the difference between area and perimeter. Okay, so can you tell me what the square units are here? Another activity that we did with math was the Cheez-Its math. When they looked at square footage, we said that each Cheez-Its was 1 square inch, and they used that kind of information to do square footage within a house. It was just kind of a connection for them. To help them refine their designs of their homes, students went through a feedback protocol.
I turned the bathtub from here to here because I know that you can't get through the toilet if it was like that. There's the bathroom with the shower. Yeah.
They were paired up with another group, and they presented their models, they presented their blueprints and their layout, and they talked about what was in the house and who their client was, just to get some feedback from their peers.
Our client is Miss Pena. Her age is 39. Her budget is $40,000.
Within the fishbowl protocol, what we did was, me and another teacher, we sat in front of a presenting group, and everyone else looked around us, just like a fishbowl where they're not to talk, they're not to say anything, they're just really listening and seeing the interaction between the presenter and the guest.
I like how you do go into the living room, but maybe push the bedroom in the back. And then that way she has more privacy.
The purpose of looking at that interaction between the audience and the presenter is so you can think about questions, you can think about behavior within the meeting, and so they can use that. To their clients, and they were so excited.
Did you have a hard time building the house?
Kind of, yeah. We had to redo some of the walls so that they were the exact measurement. There's the master bedroom. The middle is the kitchen. Here's a room.
They shared their blueprints, they shared their layout, they shared their budget, and they shared their opinion paragraphs that they wrote so that they can try to persuade the client.
Makikita
There's the master bedroom. The middle is the kitchen. Here's a room.
They shared their blueprints, they shared their layout, they shared their budget, and they shared their opinion paragraphs that they wrote so that they can try to persuade their client to purchase their home.
Ayan po, no? Makikita natin that even with young kids, pwede pala, no? We were thinking earlier that, this may not be applicable to very young kids, pero nakita natin, what if they are to build a tiny house? And anong context doon? Kasi itong community na ito, the kids are living in a highly urbanized area. And the idea of houses is that we have small houses. And that's very much true in Davao City. You don't have large areas at home. So you might just want to think about, siguro the tiny kubo project or something like that you can think of. Okay? And what can we learn from this? Contextualized assessments can also be project-based. You give an idea for students to work that out, try to solve problems in a very integrated way. Take a look at the curriculum that the teacher was saying. She was saying that they're working with standards. And there is an integration with their English language and their mathematics language, which is actually working on the idea of an area. Students, when they pile up things, ganon, they're actually computing squares of area. And that's how they learn. They learn to find out what the area is, not just using the formula or something, but they are taking it at a more concrete level before they take it to the more abstract way of computations. So ganun sila natututo sa mathematics at ganung level na understanding. Hindi siya mababaw na knowledge, but it provides opportunity for students to really use knowledge to solve problems that they feel are really important for them. And there's the role of feedback. Ito yung medyo problema ngayon, kasi pag feedback, how do we give feedback ba ngayong panahon sa pandemic sa ating mga estudyante? Do we write it down in our modules? Do we write letters? Do we call our students or parents to tell them something that what is to be done or needs to be improved? And there's the opportunity. Ang maganda doon, they have clients. Teachers were acting themselves. So suppose ako si client mo. You see, you have kids interviewing adults and gathering data. We do that only in high school, right? But these are kids. They do that very young. So somehow, bata pa lang sila, they're focused on doing investigations, doing research, where we expect that in our curriculum at the higher levels in our grade. So maybe we try to understand our what is important in the context that actually students can work on. So makikita niyo po yung contextualized assessments doon masyadong performance-based. And when we talk about this performance-based, these are performances at the higher level. They are never easy tasks to do. And the main principle about that is that when we are asked, we ask our students to perform at a higher level, you always expect high performance results. You cannot expect high performance results from low performance of students. If we keep our students focused on the lower levels of thinking, you cannot expect our students to perform at PISA. No, never. Kasi hindi nakakamatch yun eh. Ang test mo ng PISA is a test of knowledge in use. It's a test of highly contextualized test. Pero yung exposure ng students natin hindi. So we're never solving and we're never bridging the gap. So ngayon, pinag-uusapan, when we talk about context assessment, we're talking about contextual assessment and contextual learning in the modalities that we are using. And the challenge is, how do we do that? How do we think through of that? The core principles we have seen about what needs to be focused the big ideas, the collaborations, the focus on the problems and the focus on the projects. These are things to remember when we think about contextualized assessments. And when we go to the field and ask that, do we do that in the university? Yes po. A lot of our students are being asked to work on real life projects, real life solutions. We have a college who has very high number of patents coming from undergraduate students in engineering. Mataas kasi they try to solve problems in real life and try to solve that using inventions. And they're just college students. Sa College of Education, ganun din. We ask our students to think about solutions in the educational sector. When the COVID-19 hit, one thing of that we ask our students, okay, how do we do assessments in this case? And there's a lot of discussion among our students, bordering even to the political arguments about it. But those are beautiful things that students are supposed to deal with, because when they go to the real life at their work in DepEd, they're supposed to think about these problems that they encounter in the field of work. Ganun din po sa ating mga estudyante sa basic education. The expectation around us in the world is to level up our students at the higher level. And if we keep on thinking about lower level of performance, then we keep our students there. We will never go up in PISA. We will never go up at par with the rest of the world. Kasi napakababa ng tingin natin sa kakayanan ng ating estudyante. But your videos have shown that if only our students are given enough opportunities for exploration, for performance, for solving problems in the real world, they actually can perform. I don't think that hindi kaya natin mga estudyante yun, yung tiny house. I think our students could do better than that. It's just that maybe the opportunities that were given were not quite that up level yet. So maybe ang challenge po sa atin sa ating educational system, sinasabi ko po atin kasi bahagi po ako niyan, is to really put it at a higher level. We want our students to perform high. Let's think high level contextualized assessment. Yun po ang challenge natin. Okay? Now, sabi ko kanina, there are two forks. One is going on performance-based assessment, and the other one is on going to written assessments. And the best example that we can look at right now is an example of knowledge in use assessments like in PISA. PISA, the test that is administered by OECD, an organization of economic cooperation and development, does not only assess whether students can reproduce knowledge, but whether, ito ang punto, whether they can extrapolate from what they have learned and apply that knowledge in a new talaga na situation. So it does not look at whether they can recall facts and how to do scientific thinking or scientific, maybe in part, yes, to use that, but whether to use that concept in actually solving problems that are somehow not very familiar to them. And the role of PISA was to think of these problems, contextualized problems, and put that in a test and ask students to solve. And yun nga, masyadong mababa yung performance ng mga estudyante natin. But I agree with Secretary Briones, it's not so much of that mababa tayo, but it is what we are going to do with the results. And what we are trying to the reason that we are in PISA is because we want to find out where we are, what our weaknesses are. Ayan. So let's take a look at PISA. Tingnan natin ito, anong mga klaseng test items ang nasa PISA and what will it teach us. Ayan. Let's take a look at reading. Sa reading, I show you the reading framework of PISA. This is the reading framework of PISA. PISA thinks of reading as reading fluency. Reading fluency covers not just reading a book, but it is actually reading in context. Like reading because you want to study, reading because you want to be informed, or reading because you're just interested. Often reading is associated with some external factor. Yun ang paniniwala ni PISA. And PISA thinks of reading in different ways: digital reading, book reading, even in the internet. Those are still reading. We don't need, those are what the new forms of reading is all about. When they think of reading, mayroon sang tatlong core competencies na tinitingnan. Locating the information at tiningnan ko to. Meron tayo dito sa nitong competency na to sa ating CG at sa MELCS, may locating information tayo eh. Meron din sila understand. Meron din tayo, tinignan ko sa English na CG, meron din tayong understand. Representing, integrating, and making inferences. Nandun din yun sa reading natin eh. Then meron din evaluate and reflect. Ito medyo kulang siguro. But this is about what PISA says reading is. Reading is situated in a context of these following competencies. No? Sabi niya, when you read, you set goals. When you read, you monitor and you regulate. Yan. So the idea of reading fluency is captured by this framework. And when you take a look at it, ito yung sabi ni PISA eh, in the context of any assessment, but also in many everyday reading situations. Ito pinakaklaro niya, everyday reading situation, ang context na tinitingnan nila. Readers engage with text because they receive some kind of assignment or external prompt. Diba? Totoo naman eh, like sabi ni teacher, okay, read about ganito. You read, yun na external prompt. Diba? Or where you're interested to know something, sige nga, basahin ko. Ano ba tong chismis tungkol kay Tony Gonzaga? Sige, basahin ko. There's an external prompt, right? And that is what the PISA is trying to say. Pag sinasabi nating reading, may external prompt, and the context of reading is your daily, everyday reading situations. So reading literacy involves one's ability to accurately represent the reading demands of the situation. Ayan. Now, tingnan natin yung example. Ito yung isang example ng reading item sa PISA. It's called Macondo. Macondo is a portion of, I think, a story by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. No? I think he's a very popular author. I forgot the title of the book in which meron akong book sa kanya. This is a story, part of the story about people's experience in watching a cinema, wherein they feel bad about paying the rich guy or the owner of the cinema on what they have watched about. No? So what happens in PISA is that students read this material and they get to answer some type of question. Ang question ngayon, anong klaseng question ang sinasagot ng ating mga estudyante sa PISA insofar as reading? Is it the same questions that we have in our assessments? Ito yun, example po ng isang question niya. Okay. Question 1. What features of the movies caused the people to become, Macondo to become, No? So ito po ay locating, ang aspect nito, ang mini-measure nito ay locating information. No? So you will notice that hindi siya multiple choice. Hindi multiple choice. At sa totoo po, hindi po lahat multiple choice sa PISA. Ang PISA po ay isang test na tinatawag namin that is using a partial credit model. No? Sa psychometric modeling, sa statistics ng human measurement, no, or psychometrics, ang tawag namin doon isang partial credit model, and we estimate the performance of students based on partial scoring system. No? May full credit, partial credit. In a way, siguro what we can relate in what we do in the Philippines is that we have rubrics, no, a holistic rubrics to score the performance. So ganito ang sa PISA. This is a question in reading. What features of the movies caused the people of Macondo to become angry? Is that a very difficult question? Hindi naman eh. But why are we performing very low in those types of questions? That's a big thing to think about, no? Kasi ganito yan. When PISA scores that one, it has certain scoring eh. Tawag nito are partial credit scoring. So they try to think of the different answers and label those as good answers or poor answers. So halimbawa dito, they have labeled yung mga mga nakikita niyo po sa screen, yung mga naka-blue dots. Those are the possible answers, and they categorize that in different ways. So pag ito ang sagot ng estudyante, may scoring system siya. Okay? So pag ito naman ang sagot ng isang estudyante, may tawag din na partial credit. At saka meron ding no credit. So you see, may ordering, no? Ang tawag natin doon parang ordinal nature of scoring. Hindi siya right or wrong lang minsan. Although meron namang right and wrong din sa PISA. Pero what it is trying to say, if we look at it, no, the reading context is something, anong context nito? Ito ay reading literature. Ang context nito is when students read literature. And that's a real life expectation. People do read literature. This is Gabriel Garcia Marquez's writing. And when you read literature, you have to read these types of authors. And there is some kind of competency that is required. Now, PISA creates different levels of questions for that particular context. Halimbawa, what feature in the movie caused the people of Macombo to become angry? It's about locating information, accessing information that is found in the text. That's a very important skill. We have that in our K-12 curriculum, I tell you. If you look at your CG right now in your MELS, nandun yun. Maybe differently stated, but it's there. No? I remember this type of competencies kasi I always ask my English students, okay, try to unpack these competencies. We do that in our classroom, and they will always tell me this is what they see and what they can do. And I remember this one kasi madalas ina-unpack ng mga estudyante ito eh. Madaling kasi i-unpack yan. No? Let's take a look at the scoring system niya. Let's take a look at a multiple choice question niya. No? Ito naman yung understand question niya. So meron ding multiple choice si PISA. It's just that the questions asked, no, refers to now at the level of understanding, integrating and making inferences about what they have read. So halimbawa, at the end of the passage, why did the people of Macondo decide to return, not to return to the movies? Ayan. Bakit? Hindi mo yan makikita sa text, pero kailangan mo yung intindihin yan. No? Again, we seem to be very poor at that. Our students seem to be very poor at that. Yeah, so may letter C. These are some things that we do, right? So, kumbaga, hindi naman bago to. Maybe ang bago is yung open-ended question. Kasi we are used to thinking that the written test that we should always give is a multiple choice. That standardized tests are multiple choice. Now, they are the easy ones to do. But the harder ones and the more higher order level ones are actually a combination of open-ended and multiple choice questions which measure different levels of understanding. Let's take a look at the next item. Ito yun. Evaluate and reflect. Tingnan nyo yung evaluate at reflect. Madalas sa atin, pag sinasabing evaluate at reflect, kailangan multiple choice. Okay. Sa PISA, hindi. Pag evaluate and reflect, ito yun. Do you agree with the final judgment of the people of Macondo about the value of the movie? Explain your answer by comparing, no, your attitude to that of the movies with theirs. No? So ngayon, pag tinanong mo, explain your answer, compare your attitude with them, you have a lot of answers there. Pero paano i-score yun? Yun ang magiging come into play sa design natin pag gagawa tayo ng mga questions na ganito. Yan. Let's take you an example at how they do that. Ayan, hindi pala. So you will see, it will work. Partial credit scoring pa rin ang mangyayari dito. No? So you have, ano yung complete answer? They will describe that. That's the, for example, 3 points. But they don't use actually 3 points or 2 points or ganun. They use codes because the codes can be computed as some kind of calibrations, no? sa statistical modeling nila. That's a little bit complicated. We'll not try to learn that. You will learn that when you study measurement. No, but here, what we can see is ang design sa questions hindi naman masyadong kahirapan. These are questions that our teachers are accustomed to. Pero maybe we should ask this more. Pag may reading tayo, maybe we should not focus more on the multiple choice. Kasi pag madalas reading, multiple choice ang pinag-uusapan natin. No? But you can see in international tests, these are open-ended tests. These are open-ended tests which are, pag sinasabi mo, hindi magiging reliable yan. Actually, very reliable and valid result ng mga statistics ng PISA. No? They have very solid ground on psychometric modeling. Di mo matitibag yun. Okay. But you look at the questions. These are questions that we usually ask. the day-to-day questions when we read, right? So yun ang context ng reading sa PISA. No? Tingnan naman natin yung math. Ito ma'am, interested ako dito kasi math. I'm a math major, by the way. So sa math, ito ang maganda sa math PISA framework. Talagang sinabi ni math na may context. Ano ang context? Personal, occupational, societal, and scientific context of mathematics. That ang mathematics will involve three basic things, no? Formulating or conceptualizing a solution to a problem, employing or use or actual solution to the problem, and interpreting and evaluating the problem. No? And that will cast through to different subject areas like quantity, uncertainty, and data. Ito ay parang number sense ating CG, no? Change and relationship, space, or geometry, and maybe differently organized, but we have actually this also in our curriculum. And then again, question, bakit siguro hindi kaya ito nakafocus dyan? But the interesting about this framework is that PISA was trying to say yung nasa gilid. Gilid, kita nyo yung nasa gilid na the challenges of the real world. That is the context that PISA math problems are built on. No? Ang problems daw ay yung challenges na makikita sa totoong buhay. So pag magdi-design tayo ng contextual assessments na written, isipan natin ano yung challenges na nakikita natin. What is the math problem there? No? Ayan. Ano ba example nito? Let's take a look. Ito, example. The context here is scientific. The domain, space, and shape. The 21st century skill is information use. This is the map of Antarctica, and you can see there a scaling sa baba sa right, sa left side there in your screen in kilometers. No, makikita nyo yung scaling niya. Okay, this is the given problem. What is the question? This is the question. Estimate the area of Antarctica using the map scale. Show your work. As you're working out, and explain how you made your estimate. You can draw over the map if it helps your estimation. Ano context yan? In the real world, yes, you're asked to estimate. That's a real problem. Gano'n ba kalaki yung Antarctica? That's a real question. You have a map. Can you tell me how big Davao City is? May scaling dyan. Can you tell me? Madalas na alam niyo ang madalas problema dyan when you encounter these types of problems. Our students will know that it is a problem of an area. But you know what some students will answer? No? Not many, some that I have seen when they were encountering this problem. Sir, wala man may gitudluan kung saon pag-compute sa area na dili regular ang shape. Take a look at the map again. No? Balikan na ito atong map. Yeah. This is not a square. This is not a rectangle. This is not a circle. This is Antarctica. How am I supposed to estimate the area with Antarctica? Pero little did we realize na hindi naman yun ang tinatanong ng problem. Tinatanong niya, i-estimate. But our students are lax at the idea of using formulas. They're lax at that idea. So nahihirapan sila mag-transcend sa problem na yun kasi ang context ng problem hindi nila nakikita na actually pwede naman silang gagawa ng bilog. Gagawa ng bilog. At i-estimate nila gaano kalaki yung bilog na yun, yun most likely ang size ng Antarctica. Here is how PISA scored the responses. Tingnan niyo. Code 21. Estimated by drawing a square or rectangle. So binax niya ang Antarctica. Ito yung box. More or less, ito yung length at saka width. Multiply the length and width. That's the estimated area of Antarctica. The other one is you draw a circle around Antarctica and then find the area of the circle. No? Multiply the radius by the pi and using the formula for a circle, you get the estimate of the area. That's how you estimate. Pero some students, when you try this out, I'd like you to try this out. Some of your students, they will, kasi I asked my math majors to try these items to some of students, and they were surprised at what their findings. And one student was saying, "Sir, wala daw gitudlo sila how to find the area." Actually, gitudlo sila. Hindi lang yun nila magamit into this kind of level of problem solving. Why? because they're not used to this kind of level of problem solving. They're not used to these types of, they're used to using the formula. Draw a circle, find the area. Draw a rectangle, find the area. That's what they are used to. So, pero sa PISA, hindi ganun. Hindi naman pinibigay na find the area of the length and width. No, hindi ganun eh. You're given an irregular object, yeah, like that, and then you find the area. Okay. Hindi naman sinasabing exact. You estimate, di ba? And this is how they code the answers. You can browse that later. And here's another very interesting problem sa math. Related, context, agriculture. Pwede to sa atin. Pwede gamitin natin to. Baguhin lang natin, hindi apples and apple trees and conifers. No? When you plant, di ba, pag mag-plant ka, sometimes binabox out mo yung land para, I remember one friend of mine saying na, anong tanuman man na sa gilid ang sagingan o saan ang ginatanom nila? Kasi daw para ma-preserve ang quality ng soil. Ayan. There's a reason for that. So, here's a diagram of how apples and conifers are planted in a farm. Yan. So, you can see there, pag may isang apple, may mga iilang conifers nakakalibot para sa kanya, forming like some kind of a square. So, if you have 4 apples, no? Yan. 2 rows, 2 columns, yan. May 3 rows, 3 columns. It goes on and on. That's the problem. Ito yung problem na ibinigay niya. You see, it's a very realistic problem. It's a problem in agriculture. Di ba? It's a problem in agriculture. But what is the lesson here? Okay. Suppose, what is the question here? Suppose a farmer wants to make a much larger orchard with many trees. As a farmer makes a larger orchard, which will increase the number of apples and conifers, explain how you will get your answer. No? So, ay pina-imagine niya, ito yung given, no? Ito yun. What if I make a bigger orchard with more apples and more conifer trees? How many apples, how many, okay. Diba? The idea is actually a sequence of mathematical numbers, right? Yan. No? The question, which will increase more quickly? May rate of change pa na problem. No? And explain your answer. So again, sa math, hindi din multiple choice. Open-ended. So maybe dito nahihirapan yung mga students natin kasi they are not used to these types of problems. No? But I will tell you later, may nakita ko sa DepEd na ginawang ganito. Ang napakaganda po na ginawa ng ating teacher. Maybe encourage lang natin at talagang ipupush through natin na ganito tayo gagawa dapat ng items. Yan. This is how they score it. Yan, may mga formula na you get a code 21 for full credit yan, and some partial credit and no credit yan, for the different types of answers that are generated. Yan. Tingnan natin sa science. Sa science naman, wala ako masyadong nakita na sample na may Ang sample na ibigay ay more on the sample which is in computer-based na PISA item. But anyway, I'll just share that with you. Ang science naman, iba yung framework nila. Pero again, tingnan nyo yung framework sa gilid. Context. Ang context, personal, local, national, global. So when they make these items, it becomes more of, with consideration to the real world problems. Yung kagaya sa performance-based assessments, this is now being carried into the written assessments. There are written assessments about real world challenge now. Dati, performance-based ang nag-a-advocate niyan. Ngayon, written test, ganun na din. And we take a look at the competencies there. No? Sinasabi ni science, pag sinasabing knowledge can be content, procedural, epistemic knowledge. The question is, how do you use this knowledge? Or what can students do with this knowledge? No? What can students do with what they know? Okay? Sa context, ang context requires paano i-apply ng individual itong sa different context, no? How do individuals display what they know in this particular context? That might differ from one context to another. That's the science framework, no? And ano example niyan? Ito example nito, it's a computer-based item about an energy-efficient house. As you can see, this is a very high-tech test item. Can DepEd do this? Probably yes, if DepEd would try to have a project that will involve technology and creating these types of simulations. Ang ganito mga problems sa PISA, nire-require ng students to simulate certain things. No? Ang simulation dito is, what if magbago yung color and changes in the room and outdoor temperature. No? So they have like a table to work on, and then they will answer some questions. For example, or do a certain task. For example, dito, explain the difference in energy consumption by describing what happens when to solar radiation when it hits two of these two colors of the roof. Yeah. So the question encourages more integrated answers from the students. No? It does not require a very simple answer. You will notice PISA items are always like that. Complex, comprehensive, and integrated knowledge. Kaya ang tawag sa PISA po ay knowledge in use assessment, which is very much a feature of what we call now as a contextualized assessment, conceptualization in the modern times, no? Or sa ating panahon. No? So, do we expect that to change in the near future? Probably yes, but for even more complex things. Remember when we traced the history of contextualized assessment, started with simple applications. Sabi ko nga, ina-assign sa akin ni Dr. Kagape dati as his student. Siya po ang cooperating teacher. Henry, gawa ka ng test item na application. And then gumawa kami ng nag-2000s, naging performance-based. Ngayon, written assessments which are actually just like performance-based assessments. No? So, yan ang pagbabago sa how we craft the questions now. It takes us to a different level. It takes us to an assessment that we are not doing before. So kaya when I was saying, open-minded ka ba? Open-minded ba tayo sa ganitong klaseng pagtatanong? Open-minded ba tayo sa pag-isip sa ganitong mga klaseng problems na i-expose natin sa estudyante? Remember, I told you at the beginning why Bonnie started talking about contextualized learning in the classroom. Because we've always said in the College of Education that we can never talk about assessment without teaching. Kasi we cannot expect to do contextualized assessment without doing contextualized learning experiences in our different modalities that we have. So, kabahagi po nun ang pag-iisip ng mga tasks and problems, and that's what we will be doing for the next few days. No? Yan po. Now, here's a question. Should we pattern our curriculum and assessment to PISA? No? Kailangan ba nating pattern? Kasi yun naman ang uso. Actually, the answer is no. And I believe the answer of Secretary Briones was no. Strong no. The answer is no because we don't need to. And PISA does not tell us that we should. It's telling us, in fact, learn from us. Learn from the results. And we learn from the results that we are poor at this. And when we take a look at those competencies that they are measuring, they are in our K-12 curriculum. Nandun yun. So bakit pa natin hindi gawing more contextualized? Andun naman yun eh. Right? It's just a matter of how we transform now, and I like the vision of the Region 11, contextualized learning materials, because it's a very good vision to address the gaps that we have in PISA. The only way to go there and perform at a higher level is to expect higher level of performance from our students. There's no other way. We cannot, it's illogical to expect high performance from low performance teaching at all. No? It does not work that way. So no, we don't need to. We don't need to copy PISA. We need to learn how PISA asks questions. We need to learn how PISA designs the assessment, because we might just as well, try to calibrate the way we ask things, we do our teachings in the way that is then being done in the rest of the world. Why are some other nations doing better? Because their students are actually exposed to these types of questions. They are exposed to these types and levels of thinking. So yun po dapat kunin natin sa PISA at saka contextualized assessment. Ayan. Sir, murag lisod man eh. True. This is challenging, I tell you. Lisod ni siya nga isipon. Imagine, mag-isip taan ng mga problems. It's not easy. But I will show you an example of what a DepEd teacher I don't know who writes the module, but this is I found this from a module that my wife is using. Ito yung problem, as I recall it to be. And this is a very good example of contextualization. Ito yung nasa problem dun sa module. Find a rectangular table at home. Using a ruler, measure its length and width. Which is very contextualized. Oo nga naman, kada sa bahay, meron naman talagang rectangular table. Ang problema nga lang nun kung circular ang table nila. That's a problem. But maybe the teacher can think of another object there that can be used. No? But using a ruler, measure mo daw yung length. So you see, there's a competency there, measurement. But remember, there's another competency that is involved, finding the area. So you see, this is a problem which is exactly what I'm describing about, but it's a very simple problem. Diba, no? Di naman ito complicated kasi complicated ng PISA eh. No? Di naman ito complicated, pero may context to. Una, sabi niya, may integration na siya ng bigger idea. Okay? Bigger idea. Ibig sabihin, marami na siyang competencies, may cross-cutting ideas na. Meron na siyang measurement, meron na siyang area. Right? So using the ruler is one competency, finding the area is another, but they are related concepts, so they are related competencies. So what is the length? What is the width? What is the area of the table? Very simple. Beautiful, simple, contextualized assessment. But you know, may problema dito. It does not take our students to a higher level, which we call as yung knowledge in use na level. Yeah, they get to use the formula. But what if we try to change or improve this item? Halimbawa, gawin natin ganito. Yan. Let's make it in a more knowledge in use assessment. Lagyan natin ng additional questions. Halimbawa, tanungin natin, in your table, how many people can sit around your table? Okay? Sabihin siguro ng bata, 4 or 1, 2, 4, maybe 6, 6. And what if dagdag tayo ng 2 tao more? Okay, dagdag tao. We have 6 people sitting in that can sit in around the table. What if dagdagan natin 2? And you would be asked to make a new table. Okay, what should be the area of the new table? Can you draw and show your solution? So pwede yun, di ba? The same competency, but the level of complexity and challenge is much more different. The second question adds more of using different information now to solve a problem. The simple problem might just be an application problem, but it's never a knowledge in use problem. It's never a contextualized problem. If we need to have more contextualized na sinasabi natin, it may be enough to have just that problem. Pero pag gusto natin yung mas more contextualized na akin to the required performance around us, then we should take our students to a higher level of problem solving. And a simple what if scenario, what if question will actually help improve a lot a kind of problem solving that our students will be engaged in. So sabi ko nga, if maybe I have more time, I'll take a look at the different modules DepEd has. I would be very sure that there are samples there already done by our teachers in contextualized materials or problems. Maybe the challenge is to take it at a higher level and to push our students to think of answering more novel, in term ni PISA, more novel problems, or problems which may not really be popular, but are actually demanding that they use their knowledge in a very contextualized, very integrated manner. And they will have to use a lot of information to address that problem. And that's, what real life contextualized assessment is all about. Yun yung big idea dyan. No? Mahirap ba? A little bit, I tell you. A little bit because you'd have to think through about it. But I'd like to inspire you with a problem that my students made. This is a problem that I do in class. Ito yung information about the problem. Kasi in my class, my class ko is M3217, Assessment and Evaluation in Mathematics. I teach third year, I think, third year students. BSEd Mathematics 3, third year. And, you know, they are the product of K-12. And these are kids who are really very good at what they do, I could tell you. Ang problem ko po sa kanila binibigay is the application of the equity principle in math in assessment. Ang equity principle po ay principle that tells us that kahit anong problem, dapat kahit anong level din, given a problem, and given that children have different levels of understanding, no matter how small their understanding, they should be able to show what they understand in the problem. That's the equity principle. And I asked them, make me a problematic situation using a particular set of standards. So they choose the standard, grade 10 standard, first quarter. This is the content standard. This is the performance standard. And they chose a particular most essential learning competency. Bago lang po ito, bagong-bago to kasi MEPS ng gamit namin. No? And you know what they did? This is what they did as the situation. Kasi they were inspired by, they live in Davao City, they were inspired by the idea of a stadium in Davao City. When they went to sa part sa Buhangin, diya kay Pastor Kibuloy, there's a stadium that's being built. And so they tried to create a problem around that. So suppose the problem, John, a project engineer in Hayahay Plastic Company, has been tasked to create and design chairs for a stadium in Davao City. Yeah, so relate sila. Is given the exact area and place, his task now will be to make sure that the stadium will be occupied with seats, provided that the number of seats that will be put in each row in the stadium is increasing arithmetically from lowest to highest row. And when they found out, they studied, stadium arrangement. Actually, may arithmetic sequence dyan. Ang topic dito ay isang arithmetic sequence. Sequence, by the way, just a sequence. No? Mathematical sequence. So ito yung problem na binuo nila ito yung situation. Ano yung questions nila? And I asked them to ask different types of questions. Sabi nila ganito, given the area, how many possible seats can the stadium cater to if the common difference of the number of seats from lowest row to the highest row is 3? How about if it is 4? How about if it is 5? No? So, if you're given this problem, you will really think, hindi madali eh. Kailangan ko intindihin to. Teka muna. Kahit ako, nung nakita ko unang problem, teka, mag-iisip nga muna ako, paano ko sasagutin yung problem na ito? Because it takes you to a challenge that this is a situation that you've never encountered before. And our students, when they are encountered with contextualized assessment, they will feel the relevance of it, but they must also feel the challenge. Otherwise, if there's no challenge, there's no learning. No, it's just too easy. Students will get bored, especially no. But the thing is, pwede kasi maraming answers dito. Hindi pwedeng, hindi necessarily isa. Tingnan natin yung mga question. Determine the number of seats based on the number of rows. So explain the process in getting the total number of seats. Yan. So when you explain, kahit maliit lang understanding mo sa sequence, makaka-explain ka din naman. And you can create a rubrics to illustrate the level of performance of each student. And you will know where your student is. Ito yung maganda sa contextualized assessments na ginagawa namin sa university. And our education students in the mathematics program are actually working on these types of problems. Sila, nai-enjoy ako minsan pag ginagawa nila ito. And that's how you think through, no? Pag iniisip mo yung big idea nun, oo nga naman, kung ikaw ang engineer nun, kailangan mong i-arrange yung chairs, di ba? Have you seen the Tokyo Olympics? Ang ganda ng seat sa Tokyo Olympics, no? Makikita nyo, akala nyo may tao, pero walang tao. If you take a look at the video recordings in the Tokyo Olympics, the players are playing, you can see the background of the stadium. No? And you will see that when it is blurred, as if there were people in the it's very intelligent design, no? And may mathematics dun eh, may sequencing yun if you take a look at it, no? And that's how you take students to that level of challenge. Like, how do you arrange the seats in such a way that when you blur it, they look like people? That's a big problem. That's a real life question, right? And that's contextualized assessment is. The hard part is thinking about those problems and thinking about those contexts. No? True, matagal na tayo sa contextualized assessment. Matagal na tayo sa contextualized learning. 2015 pa tayo dyan. Pero bakit hindi tayo umuusad? Yun ang dapat pag-isipan natin. Kasi po, sa opinion po namin, opinion ko po, personally, we're not taking it to a higher level the way the rest of the world is thinking about contextualized assessments. We're putting it down. We're putting it down. And if we want to move higher and address the concerns that we have, kaya naman to gawin ng mga estudyante natin. We just have to design the right materials. And I think what DepEd Davao region is trying to do is that we try to take you to a journey, to invite you to think, paano ba natin ito gagawin? Kasi po wala po kami sagot sa question na, how do we do that? Because we don't do that for you and we don't have an answer for you. That's a really difficult question to answer. I was reminded by the question asked to Boni kanina, and he said, I will answer. I tell you, Bon, I cannot answer. Because for me, that's a journey that DepEd would have to take on itself. And probably USEP, College of Education, can help you undertake that journey. No? Kasi itong mga designs na ito, inaaral din namin, inaaral ng mga estudyante na. No? And we have seen how this is being done, and probably we can take you there. No? How we go there. And the thinking process is actually the one we will be sharing with you for the next few days. Ayan. Now, what can we learn, really, from all those examples? Focus on the big idea behind the standards. Ano pang big idea ng standards natin sa K-12? What content is important? What is important in this map? No? Iyon pag-unpack natin, ano ba importante dito? Baka kasi nakapokus tayo sa pag-unpack sa trivial questions, hindi sa big idea. No? Baka masyadong trivial, hindi yung pinaka-importanting idea. Focus there. Now, what can students do with what they know for this particular map? What can they do, really? Yan yung isang pag-iisipan natin. Pangalawa, focus on the relevant situation. So you have to find the situations. Anong importante sa situation? What real life problem is really relevant? How is knowledge demonstrated in that particular problem? And it must be a problem that can be felt easily as a real problem. No? Di siya problem na trivial, also a problem that does not really work in real life. Yeah. Like for example, I tell you one problem sa math. The age problem, if your brother is X age, the age of your brother is X and you are 2 years older than your brother and your sister is 3 years older than you, what is X? Okay, algebra. Pero, is that really a real life problem? I mean, do you make it a problem in real life that way? Bakit hindi tayo mag-focus sa algebra as representing the problems of the real world as variables? Yun naman ang point ng algebra. That's the big picture of algebra. Bakit focus tayo ng focus dun sa age problem? Hindi naman contextualize yun. That's the thing that we are being challenged of. That's what we are. Kasi kung problema mo talaga ang age, di tanungin mo na lang, how old are you? You don't have to represent it in X and Y, right? No. So that's the difference between thinking about what is the relevant situation in the context, no? Or what is the relevant problem in the context. Pangatlo, consider that knowledge every time we have contextualized assessment. Consider that knowledge in use is, or knowledge as we saw it right now, is actually integrated. Now, we try to solve problems. We have to understand that students make use of other forms of knowledge, even if we do not intend them to do that. No? Or what is the cross-cutting ideas that help us solve the problem? Now, one of my advice is working on, ang thesis niya is using scaffolding techniques to guide students towards solving ill-structured, open-ended problems in physics. Like one problem, sabi niya, pag bumangga ka, momentum kasi bumangga ka, anong mangyayari? And then a series of questions towards trying to solve that problem. Yeah. You should also allow students to demonstrate different levels of performance. No? This is a problem on equity. Kahit hindi masyadong magaling ating mga estudyante, we can allow them to perform as well. As better as, of course, the students. So a good assessment item actually provides lahat ng maps natin and may context yun. Hahanapin natin yung context na yun yung unpacking. Tapos, didiretso tayo sa design. magdi-design tayo, ano yung mga evidence statements natin, ano yung features, open-ended ba to, multiple choice, ano kung multiple choice yan, anong klaseng options, anong taxonomy ng options, no? Paano natin magiging equitable yung ano natin ay yung fairness requirements, no? Or kung may GAD requirements kayo, okay din. Sa USEP, we are always told na aming syllabus and assessment should meet GAD requirements, no? Gender equity, yeah. Gender fairness, yeah. And then of course we are going to construct and develop problems, tasks, and even rubrics for that one. And that's on day 4, you are going to work with Dr. Lindy Lulab on designing rubrics. And on day 5, you are going to work with Dr. Roar Kalyaman and Dr. Kiel in trying to, make sense after assuming that you all have the results and what you do with assessment data. It's actually a part of the request that was given to us, no? Nakabahagi daw kasama namin. Medyo off tangent siya sa whole, but okay lang kasi totoo nga naman. What now? After the assessments, what are you going to do with the data that you have? Okay? Ayan. Okay.
Alright. Alright, so Mami?
Yes, thank you so much to our topic 2 speaker, Professor Henry Encabo on his topic on design ideas for contextualized assessment.
But before we are going to proceed to our per subject area or learning areas, we are going first to have our roleta ng kapalaran for us to choose what subject or learning area will going to give a recapitulation for tomorrow's session. So once again, magruleta ng kapalaran sa ata to choose what learning area ang maghatag sa ato og recap sa atua for day 2. The recap that will be given tomorrow will be the event or the certain topics that has been discussed today. Opo. So Sir Ash. Okay, so now please give us some shout outs first from different districts nga naa pa sa tuwa or present sa tuwa still sa atuang live division training workshop sa atuang contextualizing assessment across all learning areas. So may we have a shout out using the hashtag for each districts on the group chat po or on the chat box for us to be. We have here Ma'am Sir Generoso P. Makikangay Jr. Good afternoon, watching from Kapatagan Integrated School, Langilan District. Basta KIS, Palaban.
Yes. And we also have here another participant.
We have here
Ma'am Jade Kuo. Shout out po from Gupitan Integrated School, Langilan District. Hashtag Lumalaban.
All right. We have also here Ma'am LJ Bastan, good afternoon. Watching from Carmen. Hashtag Basta Carmen, more pa. So I guess Ma'am Bing, Sir Ash had already prepared our roleta ng kapalaran.
Yes. So we will be having now the spinning of wheel as to what particular learning area will present tomorrow the recap. Sir Joash?
Alright, so we have from the Edukasyon sa Pagpapakatao.
ESP. Okay,
So,
so tomorrow, please prepare participants or teachers from the ESP. You will be the one to give po our recap.
alright, so we are really expecting our TWG from each learning areas to give us or to facilitate the recapitulation for tomorrow. Please also help our teachers in coming up a very great recap for today's event. So I guess now, Ma'am Bing, it's time for us to go to our different learning areas to have our breakout session in different learning areas, Ma'am Bing.
So we would just like to remind all our facilitators for the breakout session to explain also what to do, what particular activity that we are going to do, okay, for our participants.
Yes, and also to give them a very clear vision on what output they are going to submit for today's attendance. Once again po, teachers, our attendance will be based on the output that will be submitted this afternoon. So the attendance for this afternoon will depend upon the output that you're going to submit today. So yun po yung basehan natin ng attendance link. So that's the reason bakit wala pong attendance link for a while. It's because the output will be the basis for your attendance this afternoon.
Of course, you need to submit the output because that will be a proof for your certificate.
And now your output will depend upon your learning area. So, without much further ado, Ma'am Bing, let's dive in and go to our different and respective learning areas.
Browsing and learning to use the internet is, yes, one of the easiest and funnest things to do today. A click here, another click there, and we can be anywhere. You can meet people from around the world. Hi! Read amazing stories and histories of the past. Ooh. And even have a glance of what may be seen in the future. But remember, using the internet without proper guidance and enough knowledge can also be one of the scariest we can ever imagine. Ooh. Imagine going on an online trip, seeing the beauty of the place, when suddenly, potential scams pop up and block your way. Scams? These are dishonest tricks used to deceive people. And we don't want that to happen to any of us. So, be your own hero online. Be internet alert. If it's too good to be true, then it's most likely fake. Fair exchanges shouldn't ask for your personal information. Always think twice or ask for the assistance of your parents and guardians before accessing a new site. Be on guard for possible phishing that will ask you to log in and give your important personal details. Whew! That was close. Good thing I am internet alert. Remember, any effort to steal your information may be a form of scam. So always trust your intuition and distinguish what's real and what's fake online. This has been your online hero, Ma'am Jennifer, reminding you to beware by being aware, keep your learning safe, and don't fall for fake.